No, it's okay.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay, so let's start. Whoever wants to join can join later. So in fact, yesterday we were doing, the definitions of migration, mobility, diaspora,
Yes, sir.
transnationalism. In MDI3, there are some case studies. Again, as I say, as I was talking yesterday, there'll be many a times that you'd be left wondering what is this concept about. But as you go through units, as one goes through units, and as one goes through different units and different blocks, then one would be able to form those networks to understand what it is all about. So, for
Yes,
example, in yesterday's MDI1, we looked at the fact that Cohen had described five major types of diasporas. We will
yes,
see that, when we actually look at diaspora case studies, there is a mix. So, irrespective of the fact when Cohen had said that this is particularly, he had identified those five diasporas and put diasporas in those particular things, you will also see the fact that these are not watertight compartment. It's not that if there is a cultural diaspora, that diaspora could not be a labor diaspora or, or could be a victim diaspora or something to that effect. So these are, this becomes much more of a melting pot once we do the case studies. And in
yes,
block one and MDI3, there are these three units that I have clubbed together because of the paucity of classes. I have clubbed together, and these are the Asian diasporas, the East Asian, South Asian, and West Asian. So let's go through this in defining first what is the East Asian part, South Asian, and the way the units have been structured. They have picked up some countries out of East Asia, South Asia, and West Asia to give you a generic sense, because
yes,
many a times there is a repetition. And if you'll see a lot of times during various units or various MDIs, there will be certain amount of repetitions, and that way it will be easy to understand and, as I said, construct an answer. So let's delve into it. What is Asia and Asian diaspora? Largest diasporic population, most diverse, historical trajectories, immigration, geographical spread, economic and political strength. Remember, migration has been happening for millions of years, and in and migration typically happens in waves. Those waves are in different time zones of different skill-led sets of different set of people with different conditions to different places.
yes,
Socioeconomic
sir.
diversity, race, class, ethnicity. 60% of the world's population lives in Asia. And in fact, many a times, remember, a lot of diasporic studies started in the West, and inevitably they were trying to study the movement from the global South to the global North. In fact, in this case study, somewhere down the line, we will look at European diaspora. Actually, is
Yes,
there a
sir.
concept of European diaspora? And the fact that actually people have been moving. We have looked at yesterday in MDI1 that people have always been moving, and it has
Yes,
nothing to
sir.
do with South or North. It is just that because the North was doing the large bulk of studies, they were looking at the people. Today, also, if you look at the news, and if
Yes,
you look
sir.
at the global news outlets, they seem to be extremely concerned about the fact all these immigrants who are coming from the global south.
Yes, sir.
And it is never contextualized in the fact that people from the global north who traveled all across the world, especially colonized the global south, though that part of history is totally erased, they seems to be worried
Yes,
about now. So that's Asia. Asia diaspora often orientalized, exotic, submissive, or model. Indian diaspora was typically, known as the model minorities.
Yes.
vilified in times of war, economic adversity. So when the World War II happened and Japan attacked the Pearl Harbor, a large Japanese diaspora in America was interned. They were treated as enemies. They were interned, and then subsequently they were released. And it so happened, in fact, when the Indian China war happened of 62, a large Chinese diaspora in India was looked at with suspicion. So these are what typically policy responses with rises in anti-Asian hate crimes in the wake of pandemics, and this particular lines are slated typically from the Western point of view.
Yes, sir.
So let's look at the Asian diaspora, East Asian diaspora, 5 East Asian countries: China, Korea, Philippines, Japan, and Vietnam. There are other countries in East Asia benefit their own economy through remittances. China, as I was talking about yesterday, India in Asia, India has the largest diasporic population and the largest remittances which come back.
Yes, sir.
But the Indian diasporic remittation is much less a percentage of India's GDP compared to other countries like Philippines. Philippines, it's a larger part. Nepal, almost 20 odd percent of Nepal's GDP comes out of remittances. But Nepal and India
Yes.
comes in South Asia.
Yes.
Presence at global platforms helps these countries to strengthen it. And this again, you will see with various diasporas how each country, and we had talked about it yesterday, how each country is today, doing this reach out to their diasporas because they realize the fact that diaspora is a great way diplomacy can happen. They are able to
Yes, sir.
lobby in host countries and so on and so forth. Referring to sub-region China, Korea, Philippines, widely diverse in terms of culture, ethnicity, language, food habits, which is something which we repetitively will see as we travel through Asia. Largest overpopulation settled on a permanent or temporary basis. I will hurry
Yes.
up a little bit out here. Took place at the end of Second World War. East Asia to America resulted from political instability, economic downfall, Second World War, and upnaked. And to understand why people travel, or why do they go to a particular place, one has to look at the history of each nation.
Yes, sir.
And when we look at the history of each nation, we will realize that actually our understanding, we tend to look at things from a very small time frame perspective. Whereas, time frames, when you elongate those time frames, then you realize that, things are much more different. 60s and 70s Vietnam War resulted in massive number of political refugees, USA, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, Japan, and China. And inevitably, again, what we talked about yesterday, people would try to maximize their benefit. That benefit is typically perceived benefit. So if I'm able to find out, if any individual finds out that there is a much perceived benefit in migrating, that person will migrate irrespective of the hardship and the cost involved in migration.
Yes, sir.
So let's individually go through, some of these. Again, these are snapshots. Uh, this will allow you to construct an answer. You can go through the units. More often than not, a lot of this presentation is picked out from the unit. Wherever the unit does not explain it, I have gone outside and picked up information.
Okay, sir.
Migrated from China to foreign countries within and beyond Asia, citizen or permanent resident of host country, which is a generic definition, known
Yes,
as
sir.
overseas China. In fact, Chinese across the world have settled in what is called typically known as Chinatowns. So US has a Chinatown, US a Koreatown, a Chinatown, London has a Chinatown. So all these countries have Chinatowns where Chinese diaspora, stays. Then, of course, rural-urban migration, wealth polarization, gap between affluent and poor. And this is again a very repetitive thing that we'll see in the global south. In 2010, estimated 43 million Chinese origin people live in 148 countries. Currently, with this rising tensions between US and China, the US administration is looking at Chinese with suspicion. They are trying to prevent Chinese from coming in. They are looking at immigrants in particular with suspicion, but Chinese because there is a geopolitical conflict which is going on.
Yes, sir.
Cultural revolution in China in the 50s, many Chinese emigrated. Within Asia, within economic reforms, 70 Chinese people began to emigrate to North America, Europe, and Australia. So again, we'll have to see that people need not emigrate to a particular place. And more often than not, because a large part of scholarship happens in the West, they are typically you would see read a lot about emigration to the West, whereas emigration happens across. So they would be Chinese in the Middle East, they will be Chinese in India, they would be Chinese in other Asian countries. Singapore has a very large Chinese population. Philippines
Yes,
has a
sir.
large, Indonesia has a large Chinese population, and so on and so forth. Industrial nations sought laborers, especially unskilled, and the Chinese diaspora, like any other diaspora, would typically migration would happen in waves over various time frames based on various internal conditions in China. And again, these are
Yes.
typically across various countries. So in India, for example, when will come to India, you will see that the migration happened in various time zones before independence, after independence, 60s, 80s, between Tang dynasty, 7th century, and Ming dynasty, 16th century. So that old, and again, that's what we talked about yesterday. History of human being is a history of migration.
Yes,
Early
sir.
migration, migrants were mainly Buddhist immigrants who visited Japan, India, and Indonesia for pilgrimage. So now, and again, that's how the mix happens. What we said that these five diaspora categories are not watertight, but they could move from one category to another. Two fundamental trends or challenges in China's diaspora engagement policies: rise of recruiting highly skilled talent, replacing an earlier practice of attracting foreign business. So China has moved away from attracting foreign businessmen into recruiting highly skilled talent. In fact, the latest thing about China, almost at par with the US in terms of the cutting edge technology, is because a whole lot of Chinese who went to the US and the European countries to study and to do research came back and started businesses.
Yes,
From
sir.
tapping diaspora capital investment to emphasizing diaspora as promoting soft power. And this is again a repetitive across the global south.
Yes. So even for example, there was this news recently that the very high-end brands of Global North, their manufacturers are actually in China.
Uh,
And
correct, correct.
yes, sir.
Yeah, in
Uh,
fact,
s-
sorry, continue first.
yeah, so they take the products from China in a very low rate, and then they put a tag and they sell it for really huge amounts.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's what I was telling yesterday in MDI 7 and MDI 8 when we are looking at the economic system which has happened because of globalization. See, the dominant form of economic activity is capitalism. Capitalism looks at maximizing profit. One of the ways of maximizing profit is cheap labor. Global South, especially China, has is manufacturing now of scale. When you're manufacturing of scale, the cost of manufacturing is cheaper. When the cost of manufacturing is cheaper, obviously you are able to make more profits. And that is why the whole aspect of tariffs by the Trump administration is not an economic, it's not an economic reaction. It's more of a political reaction. It has nothing to do with economics because economically, it's a very bad decision. Anyway, So Koreans began in 1910, forced annexation of an undivided. And as I keep telling that, to understand why, how people migrated, things happened, one has to go back and read the history. And history is fascinating because we tend to look at things in a very single dimensional way. It is not that. There are much more complicated ways why things happened, and then you will realize that all countries have gone through political turmoil, phases of instability leading to people moving out. And we will see that in European diasporas also. When European countries went through tumult, Europe has gone through two world wars. Mass emigration to Central Asia and China, Korean War in 50-53 contributed to instability to other parts of the world, more popular in 60s. Ally of United States, South Korea benefit from the dissolution of quota system. So US has a large Korean population. There's a Koreatown. Canada has a Korea population. So is various countries of Europe that helped the Koreans move to US. An
Yes.
estimated 7.5 million Korean across 193 countries. Now,
Yes.
all these countries are much, except China, all these countries are much smaller than India. So when we are looking at India, the scale is different. Most significant number of Koreans are settled in United States, followed by China and Japan. So think about the fact again, when we look at diaspora studies, we typically look at how many people are settled in the West, but actually internally also people are moving.
Yes, sir.
And then there is the internal displacement from rural to urban, from one urban to another urban. As per 2017 remittance flow accorded for $6,332 million. Indians remit almost about $60 billion. The scale is totally different.
Yes, sir.
To improve countries' economic competitiveness, trades more with countries having significant ethnic population, a World Korean Economic Convention, Overseas Korean Traders Association, foster business. How diaspora help the host countries, the home countries and the host countries. And that is why immigration becomes a very interesting subject to study, to look at how this movement is beneficial for both the home and the host country.
Yes, sir.
More than 600 Korean small and medium-sized business inked agreements, import low-cost labor from ethnic Koreans in China and Central. Because the population, see, the kind of demographic dividend we are getting in India because of this large young population, a lot of these other countries, as their economic indicators have risen, the populations have fallen. And now you need people to come from outside. So one way is to have immigrants come from outside. Korea is looking at importing low cost labor from ethnic Koreans in China and Central Asia. A great way, because then language becomes language and culture is not a problem.
Yes, sir.
So a Reuters article: Korea struggles to embrace immigration. Ethnic Korea from China take money but to call home. So this is, and then Korea is exporting the Korean pop music, popular music called K-pop. There's the girl
Yes, sir.
band, there is the boy band. The Gangnam Style is a lifestyle association with the Gangnam region of Seoul. And now, and that's how what we talked about globalization, how the cultures from one part or any part of the world is moving on to other parts
Yes, sir.
because of this 24/7, 365 connectivity.
Yes, sir.
So let's look at the Filipino diaspora. Philippines was a Spanish colony, emigrated to Spain, Mexico, parts of Southeast Asia. Then the US came in, led to outflow to the USA, reached 5.4 million in 2020. Philippines or Filipino diaspora there is a lot of the women outnumber the men In fact, a lot of Filipino women are into the caregiving sector. Remember, because of the falling birth rates in the West, caregiving
Yes,
is
ma'am.
a big issue, and that is fulfilled by Filipino women. Now, in fact, a lot of Indians, a lot of other women from other countries have, for example, Kerala nurses have always been, which was there throughout the country. Now, though, Kerala nurses are going international,
Yes, ma'am.
and more women immigrants than men. Sex ratio stood at 10 is to 7 women to men. Professional nursing, business drivers, farmer, manager, accountant, etc. 34 billion USD, ranked fourth globally after India, China, and Mexico. So, when it is having so much of remittance coming in some other units, you will see that migration is there is a cost associated with migration, but there are a lot of social and other effects of migration. So, for example, if women migrate, then what happens to families without women? What happens to children? How they have to go through? What is the cost of having a single parent family? Inflow of remittances contribute to about 10% of Philippines GDP, which almost reaches to 20, I think 23 to 26% for Nepal. Influence on Philippine diaspora has a influence on Philippine cuisine and arts, Philippine food, art and culture aspect through diasporic community, Filipino musician, dancers, and that's how each culture typically influences the other culture. Filipino foods
Yes, ma'am.
find a place in American mainstream. So there are articles about which places are the best places to go for Filipino food.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's look at the Japanese diaspora, popularly known as the Nikkei people, from Japanese word Nikijin, people of Japanese ancestry or living overseas. Meiji period 1868 to 1912, emigrated to Philippines and America, emigration to territories of Empire of Japan. And remember, Japan was also doing a conquest, doing a colonial expansion.
Yes, ma'am.
Most of the immigrants repatriated to Japan after 45. In fact, there's a very interesting article on about all of these expats who came back to Japan and suddenly found themselves estranged from the Japanese in Japan. So think about the fact that once you have migrated and you have lived in another country for a certain duration of time, you've incorporated parts of their culture, and then when
Yes,
you
ma'am.
come back, it becomes another ball game, because
Yes,
now
ma'am.
you are straddling two cultures.
Yes, sir.
Japanese settled in Mexico in 1897. Now, one would wonder why they would settle in Mexico. There is a very interesting story about how this particular ship, which was going to Europe, docked in Mexico, and how these Japanese, settled in Mexico. The four largest population of Japanese and descendants live in the United States, Canada, Brazil, and Peru. Britain is estimated to hold the largest Japanese immigrants in engineering, academics, and labor work. Remittances contribute less than 1%. Language, lifestyle, arts, culture, uh, global presence from Japanese cultural centers across. And what these countries do, and we would see in European diasporas also, as well as other diasporas. Now, one of the ways they spread is about their countries is by spreading their culture. So, for
Yes, sir.
example, there is Max Muller Bhavan or Max Muller houses which teach German, the Life Francis which teach France. Essentially, when you are learning a language, you are incorporating a part of the culture.
Yes, sir.
And not only that, you are also creating a channel to be able to migrate to those countries.
Yes, sir.
Japanese foods like sushi is now, eaten across the world. It's a delicacy across the world. Vietnamese diaspora, overseas Vietnamese or Viet Kieu, local translated as Vietnamese traveling. Another thing was earlier when these people used to travel, would migrate, they would be looked at with suspicion in their home countries. Not anymore. In fact,
Yes,
in when we go through diasporas, a lot of countries used to treat migrants with hostility. They would feel that these people are traitors. Not anymore.
yes, sir.
Unlike China or Japan, Vietnam does not have a long history of overseas emigration. Vietnam was a French colony, was the largest Vietnamese population out of Vietnam. So Vietnam was a French colony. Subsequently, there was this Vietnamese War, our huge success, having preserved their cultural traditions, which we will see a whole lot of diaspora incorporate their cultural tradition. 20-year war fought between North and South Vietnam forced many people to escape, including US, China, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and Korea. Other countries
Yes,
in East Asia, 5.3 million in 130 countries, overseas development, 1.6 billion US dollars receives in remittances from 2015 to 19. So, and you will see, the large sentiment remains the same across the countries.
yes,
Vietnam are a mix of East Asian cultures, reflection of Chinese and Korean culture. So, Áo Dai, the traditional clothing of Vietnam now is a global, fashion trend. You'll see a lot
yes,
of Hollywood celebrities wearing this clothing. Indian celebrities wearing this clothing.
sir.
So let's quickly go through the South Asian diaspora. South, 7 countries: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India. And why these units have clubbed East Asian, South Asian? Say, for example, another interesting thing is in the West, uh, Indians are not Asians. South Asians are not Asians. Asians are typically Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos,
Okay,
Koreans. Indians
yes,
are South Asians. Indians are Indians. In fact, there's a large bunching of Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Indians as Indians.
okay,
Large scale migration during colonization, demographic, economic, social, and political reasons has expanded in better opportunity study, which is also there in East Asia. So, this is how the travel from South Asia has happened. A large migration happened to the US and Canada. Again, these happened in waves. This was not one bulk movement. This happened in waves. The earliest wave were the indentured laborers, which during British colonization was settled in Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, Suriname, Fiji, Sri Lanka, and the East African countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. So all these, and then yesterday I was telling you about the New York mayor candidate Zoran Mamdani,
yes, sir.
whose parents came from settled in Uganda, went from India to Uganda, and from Uganda they traveled to US.
Yes, sir.
Who are from Indian subcontinent, United States in 1700, present starts in 1800, were from regions of Punjab and Bengal. So that early people were migrating.
Yes, sir.
Muslim Bengali paintlers first arrived in New Orleans, where they were integrated with the community of colors in cities like Detroit, New York, and Baltimore. Migrants from Punjab, Sikh men made their ways to west coast of Canada. In fact, I think I have a photo. South Asian American Digital Archive, Indian Farm Laborers, 1909.
Mm,
So, and then typically what happens is once a set of people travel, and remember, this was the time when the globalization was a distant reality. Once you went, the chances of coming back were rare. So inevitably, once these guys went, the mode of communication was possibly a letter writing
Yes, sir.
before, and the letter would take months to come and move till invention of telegraph or telephone, which came in much later. I think it was already there. Telegraph and telephone had already come because the industrial revolution had already started.
Yes, sir.
So, and then these people would pull people from their own village, town, or clan. Ethnic, religious, and cultural identity may serve as a conduit between them and their ancestors and family back home. South Asian are inextricably linked to and shaped by three structural post-colonialism, racial and ethnic formation, and globalization. So inevitably, one of the factors was the earliest migration was in terms of the indentured labor. And these indentured labor, wherever they settled, subsequently then became citizens. In fact, a lot of these Indians today do not want to shun their Indian identity because they are a part and parcel of the local culture.
Yes, sir.
Violent history of subcontinent, there was a partition, episodes of communal violence, civil war, traumatic experiences, which again, you know, each country might have its unique, flavors of political instability. But you will see each country, when you go into their history, would go through phases of political instability,
Yes,
a
sir.
war, and so on and so forth. Afghanistan, on the other hand, is a very unique country in South Asia because Afghanistan is broken up of ethnic groups, and Afghanistan has been in conflict for the last so many decades. So
Yes,
you
sir.
see the kind of ethnic groups which are there and how they are, these groups are diffused across Afghanistan. Now, typically, what happens is ethnic groups have their own ethnic culture, their own ethnic identities. So,
Yes, sir.
unless those identities are subsumed by a larger national identity, it's like India. You might
Yes,
be an
sir.
Andhraite, you might be a Telugu, you might be a Tamil, you might be a Punjabi, you might be a Maharashtrian. There is a national identity which subsumes every of these identities. Whereas in
Yes, sir.
Afghanistan, with all these conflicts, the ethnic identities are much stronger than the national identity.
Yes, sir.
Taliban rapid takeover, US withdrawals, forced to leave Afghanistan into various countries, evacuated to US, Canada, uh, unprecedented in modern history of Afghanistan, uh, constructive and destructive role of Afghanistan diaspora. And because of these ethnic connections and each ethnic group trying to outdo the other group in trying to jostle for political power.
Yes, sir.
Involuntary migration started with Republic Revolution, fall of monarchy in 73, prominent element of Afghanistan modern history going back to the 20th century. Has been in conflict for almost half a century.
Yes, sir.
So various groups are jostling for power, which does not allow a national consciousness to develop. Migrants have left voluntary, all the migrants have left involuntary as a result of government collapse. Quasi-diasporic society does not reflect a unified diaspora. Divided and compartmentalized, it is divided. So again, as I said, it's not that the Indian diaspora possibly is not divided and compartmentalized. However,
Yes, sir.
then there is a national identity which subsumes all those local identities.
Yes, sir.
Lack a social form, do not fit a type of consciousness of dreams for Afghanistan. Past 2 years have failed to represent modes of culture. And then there has to be modes of cultural production. And what are the
Yes,
modes
sir.
of cultural production? It could be the cuisine, it could be the dance form, it could be the worship places, it could be the fairs, it could be the celebrations.
Yes,
Do not
sir.
deploy a unified form of culture, tradition, and behavior to survive as a collective identity in most countries. And unless you are able to survive as a collective identity, that diasporic formations cannot happen.
Yes.
Ethno-sectarian Afghanistan, internal fragility of Afghanistan, do not have a constructive relationship with the majority. And again, remember one of the definitions of diasporic, it has to have a constructive, linkages with people back home. If
Yes,
those
sir.
people back home themselves are not there, then there could not be a diasporic identity. So that was South Asia. Let's look at the West Asian diaspora to get a sense of how this spans. uh, has no correct or generically again. So was it as a West Asia? In fact, in normal parlance, the term West Asia is hardly used. More often,
Yes,
the
sir.
used term is Middle East,
Yes, sir.
Eastern Mediterranean or Near Eastern, not used much. So again, to make it uniform in the unit, the term West Asian diaspora is used.
Yes,
This
sir.
is what is West Asia.
Yes, sir.
Again, the unit does not take the diaspora of all the countries. Some countries have been picked up to get a representation of the West Asia.
Okay.
So this is how the diagram is in the world map. This is what constitutes West Asia.
Yes, sir.
And again, if you see a lot of these West Asia places are in strife, in conflict.
Yes, sir.
So let's look at the Arab diaspora population from countries like Syria, Lebanon. So the Arab diaspora, even though they practice Islam as a religion, they are they are a different stock than the non-Arabic people. For example, Iranians are Muslims. The Muslim world is also divided into Shia, Sunnis, and other sects. And
Yes,
a
sir.
lot of times, when people feel that a religion is homogenized or a diaspora is homogenized or a country is homogenized, we will see with various case studies and as we study various diasporas that nothing is homogenized. Significant diaspora community, particularly in countries like United States, Canada, Argentina, Brazil, parts of Europe, and so on. There is an Arab diaspora. Then there is a Turkish diaspora, one of the largest in Europe with communities. And then again, historically, Turkey was Ottoman Empire, Iran
Yes,
was
sir.
Persian Empire, and then these empires were constantly in conflict. When we come to Europe, you will see there were these separate empires in Europe. Turkish, one of the largest in Europe.
Yes, sir.
Labor migration agreements between Turkey and Western Europe, especially after World War II. Iranian diaspora following the 79 Iranian Revolution. There was a Shah of Iran which was disposed. The Shah was again the US played a part in destabilizing a lot of countries to make sure that they had a ruler which was amicable to their policies.
Yes,
Sizable
sir.
communities in United States, Canada, and Europe. Well-educated professionals sought asylum, better economic opportunities. Armenian diaspora, long Armenians were earlier a part of the victim diaspora, especially forming the Armenian genocide during the Ottoman Empire, where these people were led into the Syrian deserts to die. Almost 500,000 or more than 1 million people died. So if you see again, genocide is also been a part and parcel of the human history. Killing has been a human beings have been extremely violent. In
Yes,
fact,
sir.
over a period of time, it appeared to fact that after two world wars, human beings realized the fact that war was not a solution. It never led to a solution. But we are again seeing a resurgence of fighting, of wars, of conflicts.
Yes, sir.
significant Armenian communities in Russia, United States, France, and Argentina. Kurdish diaspora, Kurds, for example, are unique because there is no state for them. There is no political entity which they can call their own. So there is no nation called the Kurdistan or Kurdish nation. So Kurdish diaspora, Kurds are spread across parts of Iraq, Turkey, Syria, and Iran. And inevitably, each of these countries are suspicious about the Kurds because if these Kurds come together, then they become they take a part of these nation states.
Yes, sir.
So Kurds become a diaspora without a nation, without a state.
Yes, sir.
Jewish diaspora was the earliest diaspora. In fact, the largest part of the earlier diasporic studies was about the Jewish diaspora. Safran's characteristics was centered around Jews, the whole victim complex, about the negativity of diaspora several centuries before the fall of Second Temple in 70 CE. So we almost talking about uh, a little less than 2000 years of them. Exile lasted for about 2000 years. Diaspora globally lobbying resulted in the establishment of the State of Israel in May 1948. Now, the interesting part is the State of Israel was formed in a place which was occupied by the Palestinian Arabs.
Yes, sir.
Classic example of diaspora homeland relationship, establishment of the State of Israel. The Jewish homeland was only an imagined identity since the ages.
Yes.
In fact, this whole, if you get interested, this whole how the Jews came to inhabit Israel and how Israel was formed after the Second World War is a fascinating read of history. Unlike the Jewish diaspora, well-defined contours, the Arab diaspora is amorphous, migrant
Yes, sir.
descendant from at least 20 Arab countries. Bigger category, that is the Muslim diaspora. So look at how these identities become separated. So there is a Muslim identity. Under a Muslim identity, there is an Arab identity. Under the Arab identity, there could be a Palestinian identity, a
Yes, sir.
Libyan identity, a Saudi identity, which have achieved a distinct over the years. The Palestinian, Syrian, Lebanese, Maghrebi, and Egyptian diaspora stand out prominently. So
Yes, sir.
again, these are so identities themselves are fluid; they are not fixed. Palestinian diaspora, byproduct of establishment of the State of Israel, Arab-Israel War of 48-49 forced about 6.5 lakh Palestinians to flee their homeland. So today in Gaza, which is at war with the State of Israel, there are almost about 2 million Palestinians who are staying out there. This is how the Palestinian state disappeared in 46. That's how Palestinians were, which is what today is the State of Israel.
Yes, sir.
Then there is a Syrian and Lebanese diaspora. Again, Syria has just come out of a civil war. Lebanon was in an extended state of civil war. French connection, and these were French colonies.
Yes, sir.
And once it became a colony, then it facilitated people from these places to travel back to France. A large number of Syrians and Lebanese migrated to America. Syria has been in civil war. 5.6 million refugees displaced within Syria. A lot of these Syrians settled in Turkey. Pioneer Arab diasporic communities mostly engage in trade and commerce.
Yes, sir.
For example, Armenians were heavily into trading. So let's look at the Lebanese diaspora. More Lebanese living outside Lebanon than within. Consists of Christians, Muslim, Druze, and Jews. Now, Druze also is something like Christians, but they are different. So, essentially, for all those people who make those blanket statements, oh, these guys are like this, these guys are like this, there is nothing called these guys.
Yes,
Every ethnicity, sect, religion, community, state is not homogenized, but heterogeneous.
yes,
Christians traced their origins to several waves of emigration, started with the exodus that followed the 1860 Lebanon conflict in the Ottoman. And again, as I keep repeating, once you read history, then you realize how today the world itself is a major mesh of immigrants which have happened over a period of time.
yes,
Do not have an automatic, aren't the current Lebanese national diaspora Lebanese do not have an automatic right to return to Lebanon. Various degrees of assimilation, high degrees of inter-ethnic marriages, release affliction cause most diaspora Lebanese not to have passed a fluency in Arabic to their children, while they still maintain a Lebanese ethnic identity. Lebanese cuisine are now world over, world famous.
yes,
In fact, in India, over the last many years, now Lebanese cuisine seems to be in flavor. Syrian diaspora estimated about 17.6 million, between 8 to 13 million refugees.
yes,
Brazil, Turkey, Lebanon, Germany, Jordan returned to Syria, and under the controversy 2018 absentee law, the Assad government confiscated property of millions. Now, obviously, the Assad government has fallen. So let's see what the new government does. Turkish ethno-linguistic group claim ethnically Turks or who have Turkish language as their mother tongue. Second largest ethnic group in West Asia after Arabs. Turks are different from Arabs, in spite of the fact that both practice have Islam as their religion. Turkish people have been dispersed far and wide in Eurasia. 5 million live in Europe outside Turkey. So after the World War, when Europe was going through, because so many people had died, labor was required. Turkey entered into, this contracts with European countries to export labor. And
yes,
that is how this large Turkish diaspora happened in Europe.
yes,
Several Western and Northern Union in dire needs of workers signed labor recruitment agreements with Turkey, have been able to see Turks abroad. So Turkey was yesterday what you checked out. Turks have a Turkish diaspora can vote for Turkish elections.
yes,
So this becomes a very interesting trend because then the diaspora not only influences national politics but also has a say in it.
yes,
Iranian diaspora number migrated before 79, migrated to Europe, North America, labor migrants in Germany. Uh, uh, there are also those political religious activists who opposed the Shah regime and its policies in the 70s. Post-revolution immigrants were refugees who sought political asylum because obviously when there is a regime change, whenever there's a regime change, there are people who had opposed who were in sync with the earlier regime and oppose this particular regime would like to move.
yes,
Political uncertainty always leads to migration. Persia, Iran's name until 34, has long connected the great. In fact, Iran is a very interesting country because it spans both Asia and the Near East and the Mediterranean, helping to lay the foundation of modern world. The Persian Empire was there. There were three waves of emigration based, and these waves typically also are based on socioeconomic status, motivations, forced and voluntary, provide a framework for conceptualizing global Iranian diaspora. Kurdish diaspora becomes interesting because there is no nation for the
yes,
Kurds. They are non-Arab Sunni Muslims. Iran is Shia. So imagine there are Sunni Muslims in Iran. Similarly,
yes,
if you see India has Sunni Muslims, they have Shia Muslims.
yes,
They are scattered in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Russia. World War I and the defeat of Ottoman Empire, the victorious Western allies made provision for a Kurdish state, but didn't honor that commitment. Kurds with a minority status in their respective countries. So, in fact, if you read history and how the Western nations did deceit, in fact, the World War One and the victors, handed out a bad deal to Germany, leading to World War Two. And that's how the history is worked.
Yes, sir.
Next 80 years, any move by Kurds to set up an independent state was brutally quashed. Now, American-backed Kurdish state, a small part of Kurdish state has been set up in Syria, which is also opposed by Turkey because they fear that, if these Kurds get an independent state, then the Kurds in Turkey. So then the geopolitics come in.
Yes, sir.
Today, numbering about 30 million Kurds are the largest nation without a nation state. That's how Kurdistan is, or where the Kurds are dispersed. Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Armenia, part of it in Armenia. New in the European context, developed a transnational community, enable it. And now, again, the fact is, if you do not have a nation state, how do you try and keep up the identity, get those connections in? That's how transnationalism comes in. So,
Yes, sir.
and here the internet and social media plays a major role because the connectivity becomes much easier.
Yes.
A politicized diaspora is the persistent exclusionary and violence of the states against the Kurds in Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. So all these states oppose the Kurds, push them, disenfranchise them, because for a simple reason, they are scared that if Kurds get autonomy, then they would take a part of their, nation states and make a new state.
Yes, sir.
Turkish diaspora is materialized through its claim, lobbying, and rallying across the West. Assimilation for many transnational Kurdish ambivalence vis-a-vis assimilation becomes tangible, and they don't want to assimilate into any culture or any society. They want to maintain their individual identity. More
Yes,
receptive.
sir.
Kurds might be more receptive to assimilation to the minority background in the country and experience of adaptation to dominant culture. So again, it's not that they maintain a separate identity and a culture. There are also pressures on them to assimilate into hosts because they
Yes,
do
sir.
not have a nation state. So
Yes,
that
sir.
way, it's like the Indian indentured who have assimilated into a lot of countries and shed their Indian identities because they don't want to be treated as an outsider.
Yes.
Okay, so let's sum up East Asia geographical to sub-regions of Asian continent, China, Korea, Philippines, Japan, Vietnam, and others. There are other countries only also, but the unit covers only these countries.
Yes, sir.
Diverse culture, people, ethnicity, Chinese, Korean, Filipino, Japanese, and Vietnamese diaspora benefit their home economy through remittances, spread of soft power, cultural and
Yes,
civilization
sir.
exchange. South Asian diaspora is Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, and Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. United States since 1700, larger presence late 1800. In fact,
Yes,
during
sir.
the Indian independence struggle, a large part of Indian diaspora lobbied those Western countries to, pressurize Britain to give India independence. South Asian
Yes.
diasporas inextricably linked and shaped by post-colonialism, racial and ethnic formation, and globalization. Western Asia is Iran, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon. First and the oldest diaspora, the Jewish diaspora, civil wars and political instability.
Yes, sir.
For example, John Hopkins has a library on East Asian studies. There are various, universities across the world who have East Asian studies, South Asian studies, West Asian studies.
Yes, sir.
There are some references. And one of the ways to understand diaspora is to look at literature, look at films. As
Yes,
I
sir.
gave you the name of a film, Namesake, if you are able to get
Yes,
and
sir.
see, you will be able to understand identities and so on and so forth. So there are all these books which are there.
Yes,
And
sir.
let me stop in case there is a question. Let me switch on my video. Hi.
Hello, sir.
So
So, sir, you talked about that India is not considered or clubbed as South Asia, and it is generally referred to as India. So, why is that?
why don't you Google and see? So typically, what happens is South Asians are not considered Asians.
Okay.
You typically in the and this is a Western thing. It is not
Okay.
anywhere else. It's a Western thing. Possibly, if you're going to Africa, they will call you an Asian.
Okay.
But in the West, Indians are not considered Asians. Asians are typically Chinese, Japanese, Koreans.
Okay.
It's
So,
just how a construct has happened.
so it surely depends upon political analogies and
No, this
psychological.
is not a political analogy. This is how a construct has happened. So, for example, in the West, even Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, when they open restaurants, they call it Indian curry.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, Indian curry is, this is how certain parts of culture gain currency.
Yes, sir.
For example, the pejorative term for Africa, how did that come about? In fact, a lot of times in India, and especially Indians are dark skinned,
Yes, sir.
and you use a pejorative terms for Africans. How did that come
Yes.
about? So that is a part of how culture moves about, how
Okay.
certain things gain currency and certain things do not.
Yes.
And it also stems from the limited understanding of people and societies about other cultures and other people and other societies.
Yes, sir.
Please
Uh,
understand, how much do we know about other cultures, so for example, look at the fact, how much do people in Delhi know about, let's say, Northeast or Himachal or Jammu and Kashmir or Uttarakhand? They do not.
yes, sir. Yes,
they
sir.
have they have stereotypical understanding, and the stereotypical understanding stems out of media stereotyping.
Yes, sir.
So that's how certain terms pick up currency. And in the West, for example, as I said, Asians are Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans. Indians are Indians, are South Asians or
Yes, sir.
Indians.
Yes, sir.
Any other question, Abhay?
Sir, there was this word mentioned that I don't know about, quasi-diasporic society.
Okay, so why don't you Google and see what happens?
Sir, I didn't Google actually. I was.
So why don't you do that? Typically, when we use the term diaspora, there were
Yes,
certain
sir.
characteristics associated with the term diaspora.
Okay.
So quasi means not a full diaspora.
Okay.
It's an
Uh,
incomplete. See what Google says. What does the
yes,
AI
sir.
assist on the Google says?
Sir, it is a group of people living outside the original homeland but who don't fully exhibit characteristics of a traditional diaspora.
Correct. And what is the characteristics of a traditional diaspora?
Uh, Sir, we talked about this that they need to have
A
uh,
common
it,
culture, a common
yes, sir.
identity, a common longing for the homeland. Now, for
Yes, sir.
example, look at Afghanistan. If it is
Yes, sir.
subdivided into ethnic groups, and
Yes, sir.
because of continuous conflict for half a century, and
Yes, sir.
most of a particular family or a clan has migrated, what do you say? For example, if you were to be taken out from your place of stay, or where you have grown up, and
Yes, sir.
for years together you are outside, sooner or later you'll start forgetting your homeland. You will you
Yes,
will
sir.
you will long for it, but maybe the next generation or the next to next generation will forget.
Yes, sir.
And culture is something, and the connections back home is what keeps that longing in. You long for your homeland, you long for the place that you come from.
Yes.
So in the absence of that, it is not exactly a diaspora, then it becomes a quasi.
Sir, is it also, can it also be used for people who situationally talk about different diasporas? Like you gave an example yesterday of, let's say, American Indians, or they have their roots in Africa as well. So if someone is quoting African diaspora and somewhere they are quoting Indian diaspora, so they can be also termed as this quasi
As a
diaspora.
quasi? No.
Yes, sir.
See, for example, the a typical example, Zoran Mamdani might have been born
Yes,
in
sir.
Uganda, but he calls himself an Indian American.
Yes, sir.
So
Okay.
Uganda was a stop, but his roots come from India. His mother is Meera Nair, who's an Indian. And again, remember, these identities are fluid. So
Yes, sir.
obviously, a quasi will be unless there is, a firm connection back home. There has to be a home.
Yes, sir.
You can do multiple hops. In fact, diaspora ideal definition is that these people are scattered at multiple places and they have gone through multiple hops.
Yes.
It need not be just, move from point A to point B. It could be point A to point B to point C to point D, but the
Yes.
connection is back home. There is a home and a host country. That host country could be multiple.
Okay, got it, sir.
So there has to be a country. Afghanistan is actually in a has never come out as a country. In fact, it is all tribals. There is a geographical boundary. There is a political state, but the political state is subdivided into ethnicities.
Yes, sir.
And because of politics around of all the countries around dabbling into the Afghanistan politics, they have never been able to develop a consciousness of what is called Afghanistan. A
Yes.
longing back home. What is home?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question?
No, sir, that's all.
Okay. So wonderful. So you have a wonderful weekend, whatever is left, and a wonderful week here. We will
Yes,
meet
sir.
next Saturday for the next part of MDI 1, next Saturday, Sunday. Have a wonderful week ahead, and bye bye then.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening then. Bye bye. Bye, Sada sir.